Today's conversation is with Jon Braddock.
Jon has young onset Parkinson's disease.
He's an architect and an author.
Jon, Jon's first book is Welcome to the YOPD Club, which profiles 10 people living well with young onset Parkinson's disease. He's working on a second version of this book.
In our conversation, Jon tells us some really touching things about his interaction with his kids and his family. I think it's
and his diagnosis.
Very informative.
Very inspirational. We think you'll enjoy this conversation.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Karl Robb.
I'm Angela Robb. And that's Jon Braddock.
That's Jon Braddock. Thanks for joining us today, Jon.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, we've already had a good discussion, as we do with all these interviews. We always have a good conversation before we press record.
And there's more to come. Jon, you came on the scene with your first book,
which we'll put in the comment section for everybody, a link to Jon's website and information about how to get his book. So
your first book was welcome to the YOPD Club. Did you hand out passes to the club?
Hand out passes? No, not yet. But we do have a secret handshake.
Okay. There we go.
I knew you guys were going to wrap that into this conversation. But he probably does that in every interview when it's people with Parkinson's. They are always like, "Oh, do you have a handshake?"
Yeah.
I need to put the rim shot right in there.
There you
go. How did the book come about, Jon?
So it's an interesting story because it kind of ties into my diagnosis. When I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I knew absolutely nothing about Parkinson's disease. And I remember, being with the doctor, and the doctor basically told me that you got, Mr. Braddock, you've been continuing with young onset Parkinson's disease. And he didn't really give me any information. I think my first response to him was, "Can I die from this?" And he said, "You don't die from it, you die with it." And he said that there was medication and surgery and exercise, and he just gave me this laundry list of things that could be done to kind of cope with Parkinson's. And I left the doctor's office really with a sense of loss. I kind of felt like I didn't know anything. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know anybody that had Parkinson's. I didn't have any references. I had no resources. And I came home, and I remember I first started listening to podcasts. I tried to find podcasts because that was the only thing that I could think of that might shed some light on Parkinson's. And one of the first podcasts that I listened to was from a guy. He was 70 years old. His name is Dr. Christian Hagasev. And the unique thing about Christian was that he was pretty much the first person with Parkinson's that was ferociously positive about his condition. And it was really the first time that I think I heard somebody say, "Hey, you're lucky to have this. It could be so much worse." And it was basically just my first exposure to Parkinson's. Following that, I listened to Larry Gifford's podcast and found some other podcasts. But what led to the book, I think, was the knowledge that I knew nothing about Parkinson's. And I felt like the only way that I was going to learn was by talking to people that were my age or people that were, dealing with young onset Parkinson's disease, diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's disease. And really just collecting their stories and kind of using them as a message to the newly diagnosed. That was really the simple idea. It was nothing more than just trying to reach somebody that's newly diagnosed with the message of 10 different people that have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, that are living well with the disease, and each of them have their own stories. And I just kind of felt like the book would be a good opportunity for me to just kind of introduce a positive spin on Parkinson's through the stories of all the people that were being interviewed. So that was really the logic behind the book. Nothing more complicated than that.
And you achieved that.
Well, I hope so. I think the most important thing is that it's not really about me. It's about the people that I've been able to interview. So,
well, and Jon, I think it's fascinating that, so many people in the community don't actually want to, it takes you a lot of time. This isn't like a 5-minute one and, done, to collect these stories and then edit them and then put them in the compilation of all together. Did you ever have any hesitation about, undertaking such a task?
I don't think I realized how big of a task it was going to be when I started it. I kind of thought that if I can get a couple people to just kind of, talk to me about their experiences and collect the information and put it into to a narrative format, that'll be great. But then I thought to myself, well, wouldn't it be nice if I just had like a round number? So let me see if I can find 10 people. And that was the motivation for the number. But I'll be honest with you, I really enjoyed interviewing each and every person that I spoke with. I mean, it's such a, an inspiration to talk to some of these people, to all these people rather, and collect their stories, listen to how they've interpreted their diagnosis and how they have decided to apply their lifestyle to Parkinson's, and how they're dealing with adversity and how they're dealing with some of the things that we all know are difficult, because Parkinson's is such a specific disease that's different for everybody. I mean, I think I've heard that Parkinson's is the snowflake disease, because there's not one case that's similar or the same as somebody else's. So I really felt like those interviews were they just had enough energy to really keep me going. And
well, the basic question: you have children. We hesitant to come to tell your kids, tell your wife,
tell my kids. Yeah. No, when I first was diagnosed, I came back home and I told my wife immediately. I remember she was at home, and I came back home. And funny thing about my doctor's appointment was that it was at 7:00 in the morning, which was the first appointment that they had. And I honestly thought that I was going in there to get a confirmation on a essential hand tremor diagnosis that I had received, 6 years ago. So for me, I was going to to see this movement disorder specialist, and my thinking was that I was going to get it out early in the day. I was going to get it out of the way, and then I was going to come back and enjoy the rest of my day. And that day actually happened to be New Year's Eve of 2019. So my thinking when I went to the doctor that morning was that I was going to get, confirmation that it's essential hand tremor, and I was going to come back and enjoy the New Year's Eve parties and all the festivities with the family. But, when I came back, I had this totally different outlook on life. And I came back and I told my wife, and I said, the doctor seems to think that we're living in a time and age where technology is such that we can treat this disease a lot differently than they could maybe in the past, and with medication and with exercise. Hey, I might be able to make an impact on how what the progress of the disease is going to look like in my life. So talking to my wife was a pretty simple conversation, and I think I talked to my kids like shortly thereafter, and I just said, guys, do you ever see my handshake? And they would say, yeah. And then I would say, well, that's a condition called Parkinson's disease. And, let me know if you notice anything that's different, or if you have any questions about it. And I just tried to stay as open as I possibly could with them. I mean, even today, 2 years later, or almost 2 years later, I still kind of feel like, we'll have conversations. We'll even laugh about it. I remember sitting at the table with my daughter just the other day, and I was like, so Ava, do you have any questions for me about Parkinson's disease? And she was like, no, I don't really care about it. I was like, well, do you notice any differences in the symptoms as I've changed over the past couple of years? And she was like, not really. I just don't really care about them. I just kind of feel like it is what it is. And you're just dealing with it, and I don't really care. It's not a big deal to me, so it shouldn't be a big deal to you.
Oh,
That's awesome.
Ava is smarter beyond years.
She's a smart kid. She's a smart
She
kid.
is. But that's the attitude. I mean,
Yeah.
that really should be the attitude. I mean, we've heard some horrific stories of,
People not telling.
well, people not telling, but also the doctor not saying what the doctor said to you, which was, you won't die of Parkinson's, you'll die of something else. You'll have Parkinson's when you pass away. And your attitude, like, we're just going to continue to live our life and keep moving on. And then obviously Ava is an example of this, of your
acceptance.
Yeah.
Acceptance. Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to like it, but
yeah. And something else, she and I were talking about anxiety. Actually, anxiety was a big conversation with us last week. And I mentioned to Ava, I was like, I'm going through this weird phase where when I take Keenan, my son, to a cross country meet, I get like really crazy if I can't find a bathroom, because it just drives me crazy to get to these meets that are like hours and hours away from the house, and then not be able to find the bathroom. And Ava was like, well, you think that's bad? And then she would like go into her little spiel about what kind of anxiety she's dealing with. And she talked about how she had to learn a new dance for cheerleading, and she had to do it in 2 days. And she'd rather have my anxiety than her anxiety. So, I mean, we kind of talk about the pressures of living with Parkinson's in many different ways, whether it's through the lens of anxiety or through the lens of symptoms or stress. So we have a pretty open relationship and pretty open conversations in my house.
Well, and kudos to you to have that communication. And the anxiety piece was something that we talked about before we started recording, but it seems that in this COVID world, or post-COVID, however you want to label it, anxiety is coming up for a lot of us. Getting back into the swing of things. We were sharing with Jon that we had just been at a local fall festival and had masks and everything, but there were still a lot of people around, and the anxiety that both of us were having about trying to walk through the crowd and worried about being on, and
thousands of people going by every which way.
Oh yeah.
And trying to navigate your way around when you're not working terribly well, and people were going crisscross every which way.
Stop, start,
cutting you
run.
off. Yeah.
And they're looking like, everywhere.
Look at that.
I'm tourists.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I go to a lot of concerts, and this year I'm going to a festival down in Daytona Beach. And it's the same way, it's the same way in the sense that there's people all over the place. They're walking around, they're mindlessly looking around. It's going to be one of those situations where I'm going to have to be conscientious of where I'm walking, and trying to avoid stepping on people and falling down and tripping over my own feet. So
and bathrooms there too. I have that anxiety of like, where do I go? What do I do? How do I, how do we get there with enough time?
Concessions,
right? It's to balance all that, and I think it's the multitasking piece too of trying to formulate a plan, but you don't have anything to go by the plan, and I'm the planner in the family, so strategy, like you were saying, the layout of the land. What's my strategy? How do I approach it?
But
it's a lot to juggle.
In fact, like even getting to this is a festival, so even getting to the festival and identifying where the entrance is, where the exit is, where's the bathroom, where is the concession stand? Do I need to be standing so close to the stage that I get locked into place? Am I going to start freaking out because I'm way too close and I can't get back, or I can't get out of there? So,
Do you have any trouble with crowds?
I traditionally no, but given the fact that this is since COVID, this will be the first festival that I think I've gone to in probably 2 years. So I could definitely see myself having claustrophobic responses to being around crowds. I don't know. I'll see when I get there.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
I think like Ava said, just take it one moment at a time. If you start to hype yourself up about all the challenges, I think it just kind of rolls a little bit. And I certainly, as a care partner, always try to mitigate that for Karl. I try to keep him focused on like you were saying, where your feet are, where you're going, which direction you're going in versus all the other, I can't wrap them in saran wrap. I thought of it.
Bubble wrap, maybe.
Yeah. A big bubble.
Wrap them on.
Jon, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
So I was 43. I'm 44 now. I was diagnosed on New Year's Eve, 2019. So I'm approaching 2 years.
Mm.
And I was, even though I was diagnosed at 43, I would say that I was probably living with Parkinson's symptoms for 6 years before, because when I first went to a neurologist, I was diagnosed with having essential hand tremor. And I think that was probably just a very mild Parkinson's symptom that was recognized as something other than what it was. I mean, clearly it was a misdiagnosis at that time, but that was 6 years ago. And I think it probably took 6 years for my symptoms to get to a point where it was recognizable from a movement disorder specialist point of view.
Well, I was curious from the cornucopia of people you've talked to, who are all experts in their stories. Is there a common theme that you
Come across?
Yeah, come across.
Yeah, I'd say the one thing that I think ties them all together is you have to be your own advocate. I think in a way the tendency to kind of trust the medical profession with everything is a complicated direction to go in. And I think that everybody that I've spoken with, everybody that I've interviewed has basically said that in some way, shape, or form, trusting yourself and following your own path and trying and being somewhat experimental with different types of therapies is probably the one common theme that I think all of the people that I've spoken with have basically said. And it's interesting because they all have different ideas. It's whether it's DBS, whether it's exercise, whether it's supplements, whether it's medication, whether it's trying some kind of medication and trying something else, or whether it's kind of a combination of things. But being your own advocate, kind of tracking your own progress. I think Jimmy Choi, he's pretty much the most. His process was very interesting because he actually created an Excel spreadsheet to track his I think his medication dosage for many years, and he would use that Excel spreadsheet to communicate with his doctors as to how he was progressing along, and that was basically his tool to kind of explain how Parkinson's was moving in his life. So being your own advocate, I think, is probably the common thing.
Were there any surprises from the book? Anything you didn't expect?
I think I went into it with such an open mind that nothing surprised me, to be honest with you. I think my trigger icebreaker question was, and it was the same for everybody. I don't think I did it for the second book, but the first book. I asked everybody who their favorite artist was, music artist was, or who they'd like to see live and why. And I think, let's see, I think everybody was pretty similar to me. Bob Marley was the one that I think I got from, I think I got that from Paul Clough. And that's not a surprise, but that was just one of the items that was thrown out there that I thought, that's interesting. Bob Marley, good response.
Yeah,
good taste in music.
Yes.
Well, and props to Paul. John is actually wearing "Can't Shake Me's" shirt.
Can't shake me. Yes. Can't
So
shake me.
we're naming numerous advocates across many platforms today. But yeah, he's an awesome one of the many inspirations. I will go back to what Jimmy Choi did. We've done that too, where we've used a spreadsheet to try to communicate with the doctor like off time.
Yeah.
You can't find anything online. You have to kind of make your own sheet so that you could figure out exactly what, And then we went into the doctor and said, well, seems like if you take the pill, between 15 and 30 minutes, if you take that agonist within that window, it works great. Is that your experience? And he goes, well, you have more information than I do. I was like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that whatever you can do to make it easier for yourself. I know for me with on and off time, sometimes the medication doesn't really seem like it even works. And it's hard for me, I think, to derive a common, consistent solution to every day. That's why I say every day is different. Some days are worse than others. Some days I feel like I don't need the medication. Some days I feel like I'm like dying. I need it really bad because my nervousness, my anxiety is through the roof. I just feel like I'm shaky. I feel like my balance is off. But some days it's not. So it's a hard disease, I think, to be able to explain to somebody that doesn't have it.
It's very true. We used to have Parkinson's events, weekend events that we had maybe 300 people in some of the events, all young onset.
Yeah.
And I'll be in a hotel, and it was the normal. It was normal for everybody to be people with Parkinson's. And it's like no one had to explain themselves. It was like the real world was outside, but the real world was actually inside for us, for all of us, because it was so comfortable.
Yeah,
I agree. I think it's easy to be around people that know what you're dealing with, and it's difficult to go outside of that bubble and live well with Parkinson's, live in public with Parkinson's. So.
Yeah, it was always kind of sad when you stepped out, checked out of the hotel and got in your car. We were like, back to the real world.
Back to reality. Back to reality. Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's a never-ending challenge. It's an adversity that none of us have ever trained for, and it's a unique position to be in, because you see people that have Parkinson's sometimes on TV, and they don't really look like they're dealing with anything. They don't look like they're struggling with anything. And the layperson looks at that and thinks, oh, what's the big deal? Parkinson's, he doesn't look like he's being affected by it. So interesting.
As you said, we're also individualized. That it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes we're on different meds. We're all done with different periods where we are in the disease, and so it affects us all differently in different ways.
Absolutely.
But I think through the work of your book, and also talking on interviews like this and sharing, and I know you do it via social media too, all these stories are so important because pieces of it resonate with each individual person. And the more flavors you show, the more opportunity there is for people to feel more, I don't know if accepted or understood, or maybe not, singled out.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish there were more Avas who would just say, it's just, it is what it is, and just move on. and keep things going, because everybody's got something. We're all
Yes.
facing some kind of challenge, and to
Absolutely.
single somebody out, what's the point?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know, to piggyback on Ava, another thing that's kind of funny. My son Keenan, he is 15 years old, and I think last year we were talking about Parkinson's, and I said, "Hey, Keenan, does it ever bother you that my hand shakes?" And he was like, "What? No." And I was like, "Well, it's gotta bother you. Like when I'm talking with your friends' dads, and my hand starts to shake. That doesn't bother you? Do you get embarrassed or nervous, or how do you feel about that?" He was like, "I don't care." And he was like, do you think it bothers me when my face turns red? Because when he gets in situations where he's really nervous, his face turns red. And I was like, "Well, I don't really think that's a big deal." And he was like, "I would rather have a shaky hand than a red face." I was like, "All right, well, I guess it's we're all dealing with something. We're all dealing with some kind of infirmity that we have to deal with, some adversity out there that makes us nervous or makes us anxious. We have to find out how to cope with it. So
It's two wise children.
yeah, it's important in my house to just talk and be open and honest. So I think we're all lucky to be able to share that honesty with each other.
That's very special.
Well, and particularly in young onset, I think it goes across the whole disease. But there seems to be two categories that seem to have a very difficult time. And I think it's younger folks who think that they're going to be ostracized
Or judged
or whatever because of the condition. And then there are the older folks who had tremendous plans for their retirement, their later years, and then they get a diagnosis, and they seem to take it extremely hard. That it's
we had plans.
Like you said, your doctor didn't say. They think it's a death sentence, that they have to give up everything to. And that's not the case. In 25 years that I've been involved with the community, it's not. There's wonderfully productive people out there that are living with it and getting on with life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all in the way that you look at it. I think one of the quotes that I think I picked up from one of my interviews for the second book was, "The only disability in life is a bad attitude." And I thought, yep, that's pretty much the case. We control a lot with our attitudes, with our perspective on the world. So, yeah.
Well, I know some people that who don't have Parkinson's, and they're one of my favorite quotes is a Japanese proverb. It's the only thing to fear is standing still, which I agree with.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's why we do what we do for the community. I feel like we've been standing still because of COVID in some ways, because we're not out there meeting people and having conversations like this. But then, we decided, well, we better embrace Zoom and recording these conversations, because these are the ones we're not having in person, which we love to have. And that's why we continue to do them with people with Parkinson's, with people who work in the community, people who don't have Parkinson's, because people need to see these conversations in order to feel like
they're not alone.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And people are surviving and having good lives, and after accepting the diagnosis and moving forward.
Yeah.
Do you agree? I feel that Parkinson's has taught me a lot about what's important. Don't you feel the same?
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, just the conversations that I'm having with my kids, my perspective on the world. I mean, I've got 3 friends, non-Parkinson's friends, that I hang out with during the week. My buddy Sam, I meet Sam at the beach pretty much every Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock, and we take a lawn chair and we sit on the beach and we talk. And the rule of the conversation is you have to talk about anything. And we talk for about an hour, and we leave. And on Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, I typically get together with my buddy Sanjay. He's my concert buddy, and we get together and we drink beer. We talk stocks. We talk real estate. We talk life. He's an allergist, so he's a doctor, and we kind of catch up. And we just talk about whatever comes to mind. Friday nights, I try to run a 5K with my buddy Peter, and the reason why I'm saying all this is because in my world, I've got some really good friends that are not Parkinsons, do not have Parkinsons, that are, bless their hearts, they have just kind of accepted me for who I am and for what I'm doing, and they're just happy to be around me. And I think it's just one of those cases where my network is so important to me. Being around people that both have Parkinson's and don't have Parkinson's is important. I totally forgot what the question was. I've just gone on a rant.
It's great.
But yeah, having my network is really important to me. Having people in my life that, whether it's my kids, whether it's my wife, whether it's my friends, having those people around me is very, very important to my sanity.
Well, in closure, with your second book,
Which is coming out around Thanksgiving.
Yes, around Thanksgiving. I've got 10 more phenomenal stories. You guys are, I haven't figured out where to put you guys in the book yet, but you guys are just a joy to talk to.
Thanks, Jon.
I think when I go back and I read all the stories, you guys are by far the funniest group that I have interviewed. And I know that's going to translate very well to the audience. Karl, you have so much wisdom with your years of dealing with Parkinson's. And Angela, you're so good. You compliment Karl in every single way. So I tried to capture that in my intro to your piece. But I think your story is really going to be helpful for a lot of people.
Thank you very much, Jon.
We totally made it up.
Yeah.
I had to say that before Karl did. He was going to say that, and I stole his line. So
Yeah.
It was all fake, Jeff.
Yeah.
It's all fake. Yeah.
You're very complimentary,
It's
Jon.
like-
We appreciate that.
It's all true. It's all true.
Well, it's easy to when you're with your best friend, it's easy to have a good life together. Yeah. As he told our neighbor yesterday, since we will be celebrating right about the time you release your book, we'll be having our 25th wedding anniversary.
Oh,
He told our neighbor we had at least good 6 weeks. So,
Nice.
what do you do about that?
Maybe 8. Okay.
Maybe 8. Yeah. That's great. So 25 years. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks. And we haven't killed each other yet.
Life is not over yet, right?
The judicial center, though, is right close by. So if it happens.
I'm on work release.
Work release? Yeah. No, you guys were a great interview. So I think
thank you.
Translate well to the audience.
Well, thank you for writing our story down for others.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things I'm thinking way back to 2006 when we we co-chaired a Young Onset conference in our area. And one of the gentlemen who came to the conference had Young Onset, and he ended up writing a book writing an article. Sorry, he wrote the article and interviewed us then. And I think that was the first time we had ever been interviewed together. And Dan did a great job. And I think it was probably one of the things that kind of instigated Karl's search to maybe write his own book. So, yeah.
Nice. Inspiration comes everywhere. It comes from all places.
sometimes in the strangest places, in the strangest times.
That's true.
But we'll be totally looking forward to YOPD Club version 2.
Version 2, yeah.
And we'll put a link to that into the info as well. Did you get your answer to your closing question?
Was that the one that I rambled on about?
That was all great. If you could leave us with one central, either that quote again, or is there something that message
pearl of wisdom
that you want to leave us with?
Pearl of wisdom to leave you with? Ooh,
yes.
That's a tough one. Well, I like the only disability is a bad attitude. I like that because I feel like that is so true in life, no matter what you are dealing with, whether you are dealing with Parkinson's, whether you're dealing with bad grades, whether you're dealing with a job that you don't like. That bad attitude is really something that can keep you from achieving so much more, and just from being successful in life. So I guess that'd be the one pearl of wisdom that comes to mind in response to the question at this point. But there's probably a lot out there that I just can't think of at the time.
I totally agree. I think
does that harken back to your
perspective?
Yeah, well, the teacher who said attitude. It's all about your attitude.
Yeah.
Because your attitude drives your perspective, and I think it's all connected. Yeah, I totally agree.
Absolutely.
Well,
attitude is everything.
And I'm glad you have people in your life that are so integral to your network that I'm sure that plays a factor into how you cope with any of the challenges you face with Parkinson's.
Yeah, I think my network definitely helps me to live public with my disease and not be so concerned about what people think, because I think that's really something that I've struggled with, is just living public with Parkinson's. As we continue to live life and get older, and with Parkinson's, the symptoms are going to continue to develop. We're going to be experiencing different things, and learning how to live public with the disease is something that I've definitely struggled with. So I think having a network of friends and being able to talk to people and feel comfortable just being myself, and even saying, hey guys, I'm having an off day today. My hand is shaking like crazy. I'm anxious. I'm weak in my knees. You may hear my voice go really soft from time to time, but just being able to have that conversation and just kind of let everybody know. I think it's advancing the perspective of Parkinson's, to other people, but it's also helping me kind of learn how to live in public with the disease. So.
Exactly. It's so true. I always say it's
I love that title, yeah. John. I wrote that down just in case you were ready for another book title.
which
Living public with Parkinson's.
Oh, living public, yeah. I think I probably picked that up from Karl, so it's not mine.
No.
I don't know. I haven't heard that.
Gavin, maybe Gavin said it. Somebody said it.
Oh yeah.
Give it to Gavin.
Give it to Gavin.
I think every time someone wonders why you are the way you are, is an opportunity to teach them what Parkinson's is.
Yeah, I mean, what we have to realize is that we are the face of Parkinson's to the people that are around us. We are the face of Parkinson's to the people that form our social circle. So. Yeah.
In the way you're both comfortable in your suit, I guess, in your face, then you make everybody else more comfortable about the way that they, we learned from you all. And for that, both of you being storytellers and excellent examples of living well with Parkinson's, along with many of the friends we've mentioned during this conversation. That's going to make things better for all of us.
Yeah.
That's well said. Yeah, I agree. The more the education, the better the understanding of Parkinson's, and makes things better for everybody.
Yeah.
Jon, this has been a great talk. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again, and you guys are a pleasure to talk to, and you're funny, and you're happy, and it's you always make me smile. That's what I'm saying.
And here's your third grade teacher.